Welcome to O Scale Central Online. Thank you for joining us. I'm David Vaughn. It's my honor to serve as president of O Scale Central. O Scale Central offers our online programs on a regular monthly schedule as part of our service to the O Scale 2Rail community. The program is free to access. You do not have to be a member of O Scale Central to attend, although we are a member organization and we hope that you will join or contribute to help support O Scale if you like what you see. By way of a very brief introduction, let me tell you who O Scale Central is and what we do. We're a nonprofit 501c membership organization that promotes O Scale 2Rail and provides assistance and support to modelers and manufacturers in the scale. We are a nonprofit corporation. We've been in existence approximately 25 years. It's formerly named as O Scale Kings. There's a long story about why we decided to change it. Suffice it that we're happy with the result, our new name of O Scale Central, and we think everybody else has been as well. O Scale Central serves as the designated O Scale Special Interest Group, or SIG, for the National Model Railroad Association. To carry out our promotional and supportive mission, we sponsor a website, oscalecentral.com. This website is important because it includes both a narrative introduction to O Scale 2Rail with frequently asked questions, and it includes a scale-wide product and service guide searchable by category through which modelers new and established can find and purchase O Scale 2Rail equipment. The website also hosts information about O Scale 2Rail to educate people who are O Scale curious, as well as established O Scale 2Rail modelers. Since we're a small scale and lack visibility, the introduction and guide are important ways to educate new modelers, and assist current modelers. The website also contains links to O Scale 2Rail resources and coming O Scale 2Rail shows and activities, as well as history and information. Included in the links is an article from NMRA magazine called O Positive, the Case for 2Rail O Scale. The article is a good current survey of the scale and how to access it. The article is not only free to use, but through arrangement with NMRA, they allow us to download and print copies to provide readers with an introduction to the scale. And if you need additional
You're muted, David.
You're
for some
muted.
reason. There you go.
That's weird. How long was I on mute?
About 30 seconds.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. We represent the scale at all scale train shows and MRA conventions and railroad prototype modeler meets. We have supported those organizations and are working on manufacturer liaison and modular layout development. The website contains membership information and applications to join online. We're doing important work for the scale, and we humbly request your review and support. Thanks. As indicated, O Scale Central sponsors these online programs. Greg Vigiano coordinates program development, content, and logistics. I want to recognize and thank Greg for his work and ask him to step in to describe our program today. Greg.
Thank you, David. We're going to continue the monthly Zoom calls as we're doing this month after a little bit of a hiatus. And I think we have a really good lineup for the rest of the year. We're working to put in place a range of different things for the October, November, and December meetings. which include a layout tour and perhaps discussion on the annual meeting and an interview with the president of KD for October. And then for November, we're looking to put in on the schedule photo etching for beginners and an interview with Sunset Third Rail Scott Mann, and perhaps a discussion by David Vaughn on estate planning. And then the last program of the year, a layout tour with David Vaughn, an update from All Nation with John Wubble, and a company highlight tentatively with San Juan Models with Doug Junda.
Thank you. And for today's program, Greg, did you give the highlight on that, or is that still in front of us?
I can introduce Sarah. Is Sarah with us right now?
She is, but I tell you what, we were going to run through with our first guest as Katie, and I believe that we have Katie Coupler, President Alan Visani on the line. Am I correct? I see Alan's iPhone, but I think that's Alan Visani. Am I correct in that regard?
Yeah, you are correct in that regard. Can you hear me?
Great, we can.
All right.
And Eric, do you want to take the lead on this part?
Sure. Well, we're certainly pleased to have Alan, president of Katie Quality Products, here this afternoon. Katie has developed new O-scale 2-rail trucks, and limited quantities were available at the O-scale National and at the NMRA National Convention this year. So welcome, Alan. And I'd suggested a couple questions here, so if you're ready, or if you have something you want to say first, your choice.
Well, let me just kind of open with saying thank you for having me. And number two, these O-scale 2-rail trucks that we came out with and we debuted at the National O-scale Convention and just recently at the National Show in Texas, the feedback's been good so far. So outside of that, we only have 5 different types of those, but they are the actual freight trucks for that. And we'll discuss each one further on if you want to, or however you'd like to proceed, Eric.
Yeah, that would be great. So I think maybe starting out with kind of a big picture question, what's your view of your tell us a little bit about your strategy of doing more for O-scale 2-rail.
Well, let's just put it this way. We had several people that contacted us and said, hey, look, you know, we're lacking this. In this case, it happened to be wheel sets and trucks. And from that point, we had to make a conscious decision if we wanted to move forward in that realm, in that scale as well. And doing some looking around, and the fact that there was, let me just say this, a lack of availability, it seemed like, to the modelers out there for something that was higher quality or higher quality that would match up with some of the needs that were out there. We decided to go to not quite Proto 48, but as close as we could get and still be at the NMRA standards without having them drop through most people's frogs and turnouts. And track is always a situational thing. So our goal's always been to make what we can for every modeler out there at the best that we can do that. So that being said, that's how we came about designing and working with these particular trucks.
Well, as a person that ran some of the pilot models of the trucks, quite a few miles on my layout, I was pleased and impressed. And tell us about the different trucks and wheel sets you're going to offer.
All right. Well, all of our trucks are following the NMRA standards size that are currently out there for O scale. They're all magnetic, all metal, non-magnetic, two-piece equalizing trucks. That's a patented design that we have where the side frames and the bolsters on one side meet in the middle and use a bushing and a screw to have the equalization and then be able to screw up into the underframe. With that being said, the springs are not operational, nor are the bolsters, but the torsion in that allows for the flex and the work and the rock and the roll and everything else for the cars to be able to freely roll and move. And as far as the looks in them, the springs, the wire we'd have to use if we were going to do them traditionally, like our HO scale, some of our HO scale, that wire would have to be really, really thick. So this design is something that we've perfected, we believe, and seems to work pretty well. And the people that have actually tested them for us, like yourself, Eric, and the Detroit modelers, have given us nothing but positive feedback. So let me move on here. So these are all metal NMRA standard width 0.0145 non-magnetic wheels with free roller insulated axles. The axles are have a Delron bushing in it. With the side frame bolsters, bearings, and anti-rocker pads. Have clip-on pads and brake rigging. Atlas mounted adapter is included with each truck. Metal floor truck mounting bolster is sold separately. That's the 770 item. And we'll talk about that just a little bit later. And it is a patent. It's I'm not going to read you the patent number. There's no need for that. And they sell for $39.99. So we have a number 750 is our ASF A3 ride control. Our 751 is an AAR Bettendorf style. Our 752 is an arch bar. Our 753 is an S2 roller bearing. And our 754 is an ASF 100-ton roller bearing. So that's the scope of it. And then for Lionel, MTH, Rail King, K-Line, Williams, etc., cars with metal or plastic floors that require a bolster adapter, we have that, and that's our 770 as well. That pretty much sums up those.
It does. It's a good summary. Early announcements had talked about 2 different wheel tread widths. Is that still the plan?
At this point, we're sticking with the NMRA at this point.
Okay.
Until there is a lot larger desire for the proto wheels, then we'll look at exploring that opportunity for the most part. I don't know what the guys are using currently, but like I said, with the standard, we want it to work on everybody's layout.
Understand. Are you considering, I get this question a fair amount when I talk about your product, are you considering at all producing versions for P48? I know there's significant differences in your bolster setup that would be required, but I just need to ask that.
It's still on the table. We haven't made a decision one way or another. Again, I think it's going to come back to feedback with what's out there. I'm not aware of what is available for the Proto 48 guys right now, personally, what they're utilizing, or if they're actually making their own wheels, or what the deal is with.
All right. Well, I think we can help with that down the road here. So,
Right.
all right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Quick question.
Yeah,
I hope I'm not muted.
you're
You're
not.
not.
Okay, good. There was an initial spurt of production and then a period in which I think the trucks were either not available or of limited availability. Are you now up and running?
We've been up and running. What it was, David, is we needed secure packaging, and we make everything ourselves. So pulling someone off another project to get that packaging, because when we took them to the national show, the O Scale National Convention, we had them in sealed bags, and I brought them in my luggage. So we didn't send them through UPS or destroy this or destroy that shipping. We actually hand carried them with us for the most part. Now we have clamshell created for it, and we're ready to roll. Now it's just trying to keep up with some of the demand that's there. We have plenty of them die cast already and run. We have to go through our process of coloring them and getting them put together and packaged through that. So they are live. They are ready for sale, and we did release that Thursday. I think it was Wednesday, this last Wednesday, when we released our Lehigh Valley HO scale car. We also released to the general public that we have these for sale now.
Great. All right. Do other people have questions?
I have a question. Hi,
Sure.
this is John Sethian. What is your tread surface made of? What is it exactly? I couldn't tell from the pictures. Is it black like the rest of the wheels?
Yes, actually, they're all colored. It's a chemical process that actually changes the color of the zinc to black. They will wear off, so don't worry about it. The treads will wear off and they will become silver looking. So Eric knows
Thank
that.
you.
Eric, how long did it take to actually clear the black off? Or you didn't even probably realize it, huh?
It didn't take very long, but I wasn't really watching for that.
Right.
But I looked over at the cars at the edge of the layout one time, and I said, "Boy, that tread width looks pretty good." And it looked like I've been actually making some revenue with the thing. The wheels were a metallic kind of silver color. So I didn't get any checks from the customers yet, but it looked like we were on the road. It was very good.
I hope that answered your question.
Well, I guess one of the following questions, where does the black go? Do I have to clean it off the rails, or is it something that disappears?
I
More than
think it's
likely, the rails.
I think it's just a metallic oxidation, like I think of the metal.
It is.
I would think.
But it does attach to the rails to some aspect. I honestly can't give a straightforward answer how much of it does. I don't believe it's going to affect any of your pickups in any way.
No, I didn't have that problem. Other questions?
I have a question. This is Scott.
Yeah, Scott.
So my question is, what are the wheels made of a sintered metal, or are they die cast? What is it?
All of
like-
our stuff's die cast. It's die cast zinc.
Die cast zinc, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, are they double insulated, single insulated? What is the axle material?
The axle is zinc and the bushings are Delron.
So you have a bushing on each side, so they're double insulated?
Yes.
Okay. I just put resistors for track detection on them, so.
Eric, I'm sorry. I might have misled you guys. Eric, do you know if they're double or are they single on the one side? He's actually going to look so we can get your answer correct.
Okay.
I honestly don't know that answer directly, so I didn't want to
They
mislead
look
you.
nice. They look nice. I'm a modern, so the roller bearing ones would be appealing to me.
Fabulous.
They
Fabulous.
do have an ASF ride control truck, which has not been available other than a limited run in brass before. So it is a nice and quite popular truck, and is really, no pun intended, treading new ground for O Scale.
believe they're the same on both sides. So,
Okay, so they are fully insulated then. Bushings are on both.
yeah, I believe there's a bush in there. It's hard to tell, but I
Yeah,
think
it's,
that's what it is.
And the
it's
Pretty
axle's
tough.
metal?
They
What's
look
that?
the same.
And the axle's metal?
Yes, sir.
You know, we took a pair apart there in Denver just to see. Yeah, and we found Delrin bushings on both ends, which in essence makes them insulated all the way around.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Terrific. One
Other
last plug. I saw a great announcement for a new Katy Microtrains boxcar. And I thought, you know, they've got the trucks for it. Maybe we could get one of those in O scale. It's a wide open market right now. HO scale is really crowded, but we're hungry for new high quality work. I understand you got to crawl before you can walk, but consider this a request.
A definite ask. I see both you and Eric are just and Greg are just like, yeah. That would
That's right.
require
Yeah.
a whole bunch of new machinery too.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Well-
never know, do you? Somebody is buying all this Lionel stuff and Mike's Train House stuff that are scale car bodies and scale locomotive cells and everything. Somebody's buying that stuff both in 2-rail and 3-rail. So
Do we know who it is? Is it Scale Trains?
that's one of our current projects is what size is the O scale 2-rail market and where is it, you know, geographically and what are the numbers? And we'll be coming to you for feedback on numbers we think couplers could be a really good indicator of how many people are out there compared to HO as an example.
Right.
So
Right.
far as what's going on. So
We have that full line of couplers too that are all metal for you guys
Right.
as well. So the 740 up to the 749s, all the offsets,
Okay.
long, short, everything else.
They're standard
any
Awesome.
other
for the scale.
any other questions today?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Do you at some point, are you going to offer passenger car trucks, particularly the more modern roller bearing?
We don't do it in HO scale. Not saying it won't be done, but it's a long shot. There's
Because
too many variations in a passenger truck, it seems like. So the tooling on it would be ridiculous, but not saying no by any means. So if there's enough call, there's always an opportunity to do something. But at this point, it's not on the radar.
yeah, because I've been looking a little bit here and there, and I've never really seen a good roller bearing passenger car truck for passenger car conversion or passenger car kits. You've got the couplers, but I haven't seen anybody with the trucks for them.
Yep,
Well,
I think that's right. And Alan is also correct. I have a friend that worked for CSX and well aware of the passenger trucks, and he's never been able to fully explain to me all the differences. There's a lot of differences out there, but boy, it sure would be nice to have trucks for one or whatever were the most common, say two passenger car trucks available. So,
Let's make the freight car truck project a big success. So everybody here buy the trucks, spread the word so everybody you know will buy the trucks. They are Katy quality. There are a couple of new ones and we think everybody will be happy with them. I want to thank Alan for coming on the program. Alan did show up in Denver and showed the flag for Katie. We really appreciate that, and we appreciate him coming on the call. And Katie was at an MRA National as well. So Alan is well traveled.
Thank you,
And I
guys.
don't think
Go ahead.
he had to carry any trucks home either.
No,
right.
we did.
And we have had a very good interaction with Katie. They asked for some help, in effect, beta testing the product, and Eric Peterson and Skylar Shippey on the Detroit Club were able to put quite a few thousand scale miles on the trucks in advance of their release. So that's something we are interested in continuing to do, working with the manufacturers, and we appreciate the manufacturers working with us. So Alan, thank you very much for your time
You're
today.
welcome.
And
And
if-
thank-
One
and if
one
you-
last question. Are these gonna be available through dealers or are these direct only?
No, they are available through your dealers and or direct.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
And
David,
I
I
know-
think with that note, it's probably a good segue with passenger car trucks to talk about 3D printing, because in the interim, 3D printing could be a solution to bringing out these particular types of trucks in advance of a regular manufacturing availability. So I think at this point, is it okay to move to the next part of the program and introduce
Please do. Greg,
Sarah?
you're in charge.
Okay. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Sarah from Austria. I became aware of Sarah's work through all of the discussion from the Denver show, and as I started to look at some 3D personal projects and looking at her work, I was just really astonished by the type of detail that Sarah's been able to build into her modeling. And incidentally, Sarah's a bit of an anomaly because being based in Austria and modeling a Western American railroad, I think is quite unique. So without too much further discussion, I'd like to introduce Sarah Grissenbach. If I pronounce that correctly, I'll feel quite accomplished today. But Sarah, can you unmute and show your video?
Thank you so much. Perfect pronunciation on your side, actually.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. It's so kind to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And Greg and I, we had a discussion about for me, evening, for you, afternoon, and how it's gonna be. And he asked me to show a little bit of what I'm doing and what is possible with 3D printing at the moment. And I can only speak from my side here, what I do. There are a ton of really good people out there doing incredible things, also in the other scales. So what I do is, when I say what's being done or what can be done in 3D printing, I only refer to my own work. Of course, I wanted to make sure that you know that there are so many other talented people out there. So I have prepared a little presentation. You guys were so kind to invite me to the Denver show, and I had a clinic there, and it was a little bit long because a couple of you guys have been there, and I hope I don't make it too long this time. So it is just to show you what I do. So I have to share my screen with you. I hope this works out. So you should
looks good,
be
Sarah.
in. Great, you should be in my presentation now, and I'm going to start it. Okay. I started 2 years ago with getting a printer, Then I started to get into the 3D drawing and drafting of all the stuff using the program Fusion 360. And then I said to myself, well, I should possibly share my files with the world. And I set up this website, trainkitchen.com, where in the download section, everybody can just download whatever is possibly useful for him and her. And that's my website, trainkitchen.com. I started out with very simple things like having 3-rail to 2-rail conversions on a couple of MDH cars or Atlas cars, and the floors are never right, the bolsters are never right. So I decided, well, to just give that new technique a try and print my own car bolsters. And here you can see a 3-rail car, Proto 48 now, with the correct height of the car body, and that's so easy to do with 3D printing, because we have I have a couple of these cars and that cars, and they are all the same, and I just designed the underbody one time, and then I print it. Very easy, very nice to do. Next thing that I started doing was detail parts for the doors of the cars. They were not perfectly good, and then I made my first detail parts with a resin printer that I bought. I still have the very same printer, and I have no need to buy a new one because it's still so good. I will eventually invest into a bigger one, because bigger build plate might be bigger build volume might be something to consider in the future. So then I started to make all these little parts for my doors, like this Greco door mechanism here. And as you can see, it's really tiny. It's really a very, very tiny part, and I'm totally happy with the quality it came out. Here you can see the full door, then a Youngstown door that is very, very common in the mid-30s, with the camel door hangers and the mechanism and everything. Yeah, you can then print your own detail parts. Here you can see now the door in a what is it, a 1937 AAR car by Intermountain, and you can see at that time I did not clean the door proper, because I was still yeah, not that experienced and everything. And now I have the full control over my technique, and you can see there are a couple of irritations on that door that are not happening anymore. Then what is very useful to me is to convert 3-rail or even 2-rail trucks to Proto 48, and that means to get a new truck bolster installed that will give you the opportunity to get the right spacing. And here you can see one of the Atlas passenger trucks converted. And then I found that maybe the detail is not right, and I milled it all down, and I just designed new side frames and detail parts, and mock them all together. If they then, and the cool thing about this is I can design stuff by printing and trying it, and if it doesn't work, I just slightly change the design, and immediately, possibly in the same day, I have the completely finished part that really fits in the space. And here you can see now that truck being done. Just another example of useful things. Like here, I have designed a diaphragm that really works, and that really makes contact on my Atlas Erie builds. And also I could I could add some other parts like the Tide Lock coupler and because these models will be permanently coupled, so I have made a drawbar with the correct coupler head, and not to scare off KD, I'm using KD on everything else, I can assure you. So there you have the brake, the airlines. These are also prints and some tubing added. You can do a lot of amazing things in 3D printing. And then I designed this what is it? This a cover for the coupler, and that cover needed to be done because this is an MTH model, and they didn't do this right because it used to be a 3-rail model, and now I fixed the pilot permanently to the chassis and designed this prominently in the middle, a KD coupler, of course. Yeah, then I tried another thing, illuminated dashboards on that diesel. So because in these diesel engines there is not a cap at all, it is just the motor. I put the motor out to have a fully detailed cap, and I designed all the parts for it. So you can see here now, you can see all the brake stand and the control stand and all the parts that are needed to have a cap modeled into the e-rebuild. Then I used this device to highlight the dashboard by using glass fibers and better, I should say, plastic fibers and LEDs that will light up, programmed by the decoders, and do useful little lights in the cab. And then, of course, you can also add other little parts like this generator and air intake, or the air compressor, to put that in the engine compartment. And because the engine compartment has a separate lighting, I can just, while in the station, occasionally get the lights on in the engine compartment. You can see the detail parts inside. That's pretty cool, I think. And then here you have the dashboard, and it's all in place with the little lights, and looks cool from outside when you run at a night operation session. Yeah, then I have also had the intention to animate these ventilators on the engine. Yeah, these, what are they? Radiators for cooling. And it turns out that with 3D printing, this kind of work of engineering is pretty easy, because it doesn't take too long to get these parts to fit all the fixtures, to hold the motor by just simply printing them out and a little bit tweaking here and there until the design is then good. Then I build it in, and yeah. I'm a little bit proud of that because I think it's really cool.
It's great.
Okay, then I also designed a couple of trucks, like these Erie Railroad Express trucks. I don't model that, and I have no use for it, but a good friend asked me to do that, and so I made this truck happen. And as you can see, Dan Doughty printed it for Malcolm Bird, who put it under one of his great cabooses. So I'm a little bit proud of that too. Then speaking of passenger trucks, this is maybe the most complicated thing that I've designed so far. It is a 43EG truck that was used under the Challenger cars of the Chicago and Northwestern. And this is a very unique truck, and I did not find anything even close. But I have the car bodies by Ed Wichmann now, and I needed the correct truck, so I decided that I give this a try, and turned out nice. And by now I also have found the right resin to print trucks that is how you say that that is stable enough, that is tough enough to support a heavyweight and at the end of this little it's getting too long already, I know, but I'm so sorry. But at the end I will show you a little other thing that I'm doing together with Jay Criswell, and it has to do with brass. And that would be even the coolest thing to have such a truck in brass. So here you can see I incorporated a little equalizing by these coil springs. They are very important for Proto 48 because we need, with our tiny flanges, we need all 4 or 6 truck wheels to make contact at the same time with the rail. Otherwise, you have a derailment programmed. And then, of course, not a very, I can say that, not a thing that I could buy anywhere or find in a catalog was the ICE engine for the underbody of the Challenger cars. So I will going to design all the detailed parts that I need for passenger cars that I model. And here you can see how good the prints are by now. So it's really, you can even read the Waukesha ICE engine on the cover, and it's really tiny, and it's totally amazing what can be done. And of course, if you need a unique car, you can change the car ends or other details and make them just the way you want it. That's what I do very often recently. Like here, I have a reefer with a Viking roof because it's going to be a 1932 AAR conversion, where the reefer has just about the right height, and so take what you have. We don't have many models in our scale, so we have to be a little bit more creative about it. And here you can see the Viking roof for the Erie 1932 AAR car installed, together with Buckeye ends that I designed that are also not available anywhere else. You can see how I stiffen out the car body, and there are weights inside. It's all 3D printed because it's so easy. And of course, you're getting lazy. You could do that all in styrene, and but you know, that's a little bit the downside of all of this. That my modeling skills, they certainly don't go up, they go down, because I tend to print everything. Here you can see another conversion that somebody else did. I provided the doors for this these lumbar doors for the Seaboard car. Cannot be done easily because all the rivets are there. It's not so easy to see that, and all the detail parts, I really took care to have the spacing. If you do that in styrene, it takes very long time. So this is definitely a plus. And my current project is to build this water tower. It's a 350,000 gallon water tower that is up at Harriman on the Union Pacific main line. And I visited that in this June, made a lot of photos. And of course, it's much too large for about any printer that is available for reasonable money. And so I decided to go and build it in little parts. You can see here is now the body. The body is consisting of all these little honeycomb as a stiffener. This honeycomb panels that held it together by the support structure, and then I printed all of these plates, these anchor plates, I think. Is that what you say in English? And to hold the structure together. And I'm using brass U channels because they are just capable of supporting the weight without bending and warping, and fill in all the details just by prints, which is very easy. And here you can see how the structure slowly grows. And you can see that I also printed the base with the correct spacing. So easy to do. I mean, it takes a long time to design all this, but when you're done, you can easily. And I like the precision of all this. It's so precise. You put it there, and it will. You know it's gonna be perfect. So here is the counterpart on the base of the tank. I'm using brass wherever I can because it adds a little bit weight to the bottom, and if I don't have to print it and just buy the brass rod, then I buy the brass rod, to be honest. You can see some concrete color to the base. So this is the current project that I'm doing now. It will take another 1 or 2 months to complete, but it's gonna be a nice model. You can see the tower, the roof installed. It's gonna be there will be some slight changes, but I'm sure I can show you the finished model one day. Yeah. And then we come to Mr. Criswell, who is so kind, being my mentor in O-Scale. And he came up with an idea for you modern guys, because this is a project that I did with him for Blomberg trucks that are of course available at the P&D hobby shop, and we all know these trucks and we love them, but they only come with the little bit old-fashioned journals. And we wanted to create new journals with the roller bearing caps rotating actually. So I simply sketched that up and printed it to have the correct size to fit the truck. Here you can see the cap sticking on a wheel. It's just an ordinary wheel. These also go on the actual wheels, as you will see. And then we just printed the sprue onto the journals, and Jay had them cast in brass. So here you can see actually it's like it's coming out of the printer, but it's brass. So this is one thing that really fascinates me, that the technique is now so advanced that we can design something in a computer and print it out and get it cast. That's so cool. You can see the whole thing from a cut, and here you can see how it's looking when it rotates. And I think this is, I mean, it's much too modern for me, so I I won't have them, but yeah, but that's the way Jay works. Roller bearings installed, of course, and here you can see the side frame from the side with the 3D printed cap, and I think that is so cool, and that maybe shows us a little bit how we can suspect future things. Oops. Yeah. Okay. And how we can proceed with 3D printing and what it can do for us, and I'm totally convinced that this is just beginning, and especially the young folks will surprise us with what they do.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was excellent and just astonishing with all of your current projects and the kind of results you're getting on truly what is almost like a micro scale with the amount of detail that you can actually read on what is probably getting down to like thousandths of inches, on that level of precision. So let's open it up to some questions for Sarah and 3D printing and what is actually possible with some of the projects that we're all working on. Don't be shy, just raise your hand.
Hey, Sarah,
Hey,
this is Jay. Thank you for the shout out, sweetie. One of the things I want to do now is print that truck in their castable resin, and let's make some in brass.
yeah.
So you send me the file, and I'll try to slice it, and we'll see how it plays out.
I think that would be so great. Yes, actually, that would
Well,
solve a lot of problems.
Well, I want to do things for you because you do so much for me and the rest of us. Okay, we'll have fun with it.
Thanks, Jay. Anybody else?
What program are you using?
Well, I'm using Fusion 360 by Autodesk, and that is a program that is actually for free. However, I have a paid for a version because I have so many projects and I want to use all the features. And you don't have to save it to your computer. You can have it in the cloud, and that's very helpful for me. It is about $300-400 a year if you want to use the full program. But actually, I could easily just take the free version and do about the same what I do. So it's just luxury for me. But I really like it. It's easy to learn because there are a ton of YouTube tutorials out there to every special problem because it's so widely used. So I would always choose that program to work with.
Hi, Sarah. Jim Cantor here. What's the name of that program again?
Fusion 360. I write it in the chat.
Okay, Fusion 360. Thank you.
It's an Autodesk product,
Yes,
like AutoCAD. It's the same company that owns Fusion 360. It does Fusion 360.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah,
like
I got two questions that are related. Number one, what is your professional background? It certainly feels like you have some kind of engineering or computer science background or something. I'd love to know what that is. And second, what drives you to such an incredible level of perfection? I mean, I've known some good modelers in my day. You're way up there at the top. Blows everybody away.
I try to be humble, but it's hard with your kind words. Thank you very much. Makes my ship sail. On the other hand, and actually I'm a waitress, and we had a hotel here in Austria in Kramsach where I live, and I took over the hotel, and I found myself in the position that it was very hard to work here all on my own, with my dad dying very much too early, much too soon, with only 60 years. And then I changed a couple of things. I rebuilt the whole house into a permanently rental flats, so I have more time modeling. And I don't have any background like that. I just fell in love with trains. When I was a kid, my grandfather took me to the trains, to the track, and then I lost interest in it totally, and in my late 30s. It returned. I don't know why. And then I decided that I wanted to do O scale because it's, you know, I mean it's so big, you know, it's big, it's heavy, it is something, and you can add a lot of details. So I never planned for having a huge layout. So I thought O scale is good because if you have a shelf layout, then you can make up for the space that you don't have by adding detail. But my plans changed, and I will have a great layout one day.
Well, thank you for that.
Sarah, I have a question, getting back to the trucks with the design work first, when you're doing it in Fusion 360, is it ever advisable to not include the springs and leave them out of the CAD design, and then do the print without the springs, and then use the appropriate diameter wire to wind around to include a metal spring to add to the printed part? Is that a good approach or not?
It depends on what you need. I have shown the e-rebuild truck.
Yeah.
And the rebuild truck is short, so I planned it completely rigid. It's one part actually, and Dan printed it. I think one time he printed it in one part, and then he printed it in 3 parts, which is easier to print and to support. But actually, because it's so not long, the chance that you have the symmetry in your wheels is very high. So I said I opted against any suspension. If you do OW5, the regular O scale, I think you don't need it at all. It looks good, but it looks better if you have the coils really solid, and not like these flimsy wire, which is not prototypical. So I would always go that way. But in Proto 48, you need to worry about symmetry in it, and the resin is not the ideal stuff to do your trucks with, because the resin is not known to mankind for a very long time. And we cannot be sure it doesn't warp or doesn't break or crack in 10 years or so. So I want to avoid to use resin for heavy cars like passenger cars, and better have them printed together with Mr. Criswell. I think that's a good plan. But you need to suspend it somehow. And if you be honest, most locomotives that we have have some kind of suspension. The Brusque stuff has it in any case, but the springs are always too stiff, and it doesn't do anything. So I think this is something that I really like, is when the suspension works, because then you don't have any troubles in Proto 48, even if your track work is not super duper professionally exact. So yeah, I would always do that.
Can I jump in for a second?
Sure.
This brought up a thing. When we did the SDL 39 castings for Central Locomotive, Glenn Guerrera found a company online, and I don't have the information here, but you can go to their website and you can put in the weight and the spring diameter or the wire diameter and come up with all these numbers and come up with a perfect spring based on the weight of your locomotive. The downside is it's very, very expensive. And I think they ended up ordering, I don't know, I want to say 1,000 springs for that run of 24 locomotives. But that's the only way you're going to do it. You're not going to find any off-the-shelf stuff that's going to look right and, as Sarah says, actually do any suspension work. But there are ways around it, but it's very, very costly.
Sarah, this is Jim Cantor. I had one more comment. On the
Sure.
first picture that you had that had the Intermountain car, and it was one of your early doors that you printed, and you talked about getting rid of the imperfections. The imperfections on that door looked really good because it looked like something that had been in service for a long time. And I really kind of like the imperfection. It doesn't look like plastic. So in the same way with the tower that you're building, instead of it all being a smooth sheet, it gives you the illusion that they are actually individual panels, and it really adds a lot to the character of the boxcar and the water tower. So I just wanted to comment that some things that
Okay.
aren't always perfect actually look more prototypical. So thank you for
Mm,
your work.
thank you.
Sarah, if I can ask you a couple of questions, and before I
Sure.
do, let me thank you first for sharing the details that you do and sharing those files for everyone to be able to have access to the quality work that you do. I have probably 3 questions for you. 1, what type of printer do you use? 2, when you printed those files in resin to be cast in brass, did you have to be concerned about the burnout of the resin? And 3, I assume you went a little oversized on the files, and that's something that would be easy to do to account for the shrinkage of the brass.
Mhm. The first question goes to me. The other 2 questions go to Mr. Criswell. I have a Elegoo Saturn, the very first that came out, which is a machine that I really absolutely love. And I don't have the need to buy anything with more resolution, but as Greg had to chat with me a couple of days ago, he recommended that I get a better one. So maybe I will do that. But for all that I did so far, the Elegoo Saturn, the normal one, was just okay. And then about burning out the resin by casting, maybe Jay can answer that question because he's the pro. Oh, you're muted, Jay. Still.
Am I unmuted now?
Oh, that's good.
No, okay. Yeah, you have to use a resin designed for casting. In this case, it's, I forget the name of the company, but it's made for casting. It's made for burning out. If you don't use a resin designed for that, it's not going to work. As far as shrinkage, the brass itself shrinks very, very little, but the resin appears to shrink about 6%. So yes, you do have to adjust for that. And as far as the resin too, we're burning out at 1350 degrees, and we have pretty good results. So, we're happy with it.
Is that degrees Fahrenheit or degrees centigrade?
Fahrenheit.
Okay. And you mentioned that the resin shrinks 6%. If you were trying to make something that was, for example, 24 inches long, would you go 24 inches plus 6% to account for the shrinkage in the resin? Or does the resin, when the resin is formed on your initial plate, is it held to a greater degree of accuracy?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but if you read the specs on the resin, it says the shrinkage is about 6%. So that's what we went with. As far as doing castings, we don't have the ability to cast anything that long, like a full-size car or anything like that.
Yeah, in the past, go ahead.
To do that, you have to do a different kind of casting. I forget the name of it. It escapes me, but we use investment casting, lost wax casting in a canister, and the canister determines how large you can go. And I think we're using 9 or 10 inch canisters at this point.
Gotcha. In the past, I've used just less than 3% for casting for brass and shrinkage of the brass when it draws back.
Well, typically the brass, it's not the brass that shrinks. when you're shooting waxes, it's the wax that shrinks in the mold. Vulcanized mold, you get 6-7%. RTV mold depends on the RTV. We have an outfit back in Manhattan that we're getting about 0.5% with their RTV. The RTV we use locally, we were getting about 2.5%. So you really need to know what's your rubber, whether it's RTV or vulcanized, latex. You need to plan for that. You need to design to it. One of the things I want to do is I actually want to draw a known item, like a square, a rectangle that's 1 inch long, 1/8 of an inch thick, 1/2 an inch wide. Print it, measure it, cast it, and measure it, and document that so we can get a little bit better idea exactly what kind of shrinkage we're getting. Anyway, sorry about that.
No, Jay, thank you for the answer. And Sarah, thank you again for sharing your STLs online. That's very kind of you to do so. You do great work.
Thank you.
I have a feeling we could probably go on all afternoon and be absolutely fascinated with everything that we are learning from Sarah and everything we learned from Jay and Dan Dowdy and anybody else who's involved with this process. Greg, I'm going to turn to you. At what point do we need to go to the third topic on our agenda for the meeting?
Well, I think that's a great segue, David. Why don't we do it now? Sarah, thank you so much. And maybe what we can do is have a quarterly report from Sarah, because this is such a key area of the hobby, and it's just got so much potential, and allowing us to basically create objects that are not going to be manufactured any other way. So thank you again, Sarah. I think it was a fantastic presentation, and we were just delighted that you could come and speak to the group.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. But Greg, before we go on, some people may not be as familiar with Zoom as others, and one of the features on Zoom is the chat room. And if you look down at the bottom, close to the center of your screen, there's a little box that says something clever like chat. And that's where people can post messages for everybody to see. And so far, we have, number one, Sarah's website, crainkitchen.com. We have a note on how to access the Katie trucks. We have another note on an alternate source of 3D printed trucks from Lambert Locomotive Works. And there may be one more of general applicability. So please look on those to get the links, to get the websites and so on. And that will stay up as long as the meeting is open. Unfortunately, I don't think it's something that you can download and print, but write it down. Anyway.
Hey, hey, David.
Yes.
Group. If you go on my computer, if you go on the very bottom, there's a list of little icons. There's one that it looks like a piece of paper, and if you highlight it, it says file. You click on it, it'll give you the opportunity to download it into several different formats.
Thank you. I'm proving once again my technological limitations. Greg?
Yeah, I think that's good. Let's move to the next program. David, that's where I think you were going to lead the discussion on the future of the O-Scale National Convention.
Sure, it's a little broader than that, but Eric Peterson is going to work. I don't know whether we ever were able to connect with Greg Kowal or not. Eric will tell us that, but clearly we live in a changing world, and there's been a lot of discussion as to the future of O-scale two-rail conventions and scale-specific shows. And I think it's useful to air out some of those issues. And O-scale Central Vice President Eric Peterson, who was heavily involved in the recent Denver National Convention, will work with Dan Dowdy, who's our editor of O-scale Resource, and if he was able to join us, with Brad Kowal, who is the head of the Chicago March Meet. Eric, you want to take it?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Brad, can you hear us? Can you
Yes,
talk?
I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, gotcha. And we already know we talked to Dan. Well, as others know, O-scale National Convention has a long history. An event hosted by clubs or groups in a variety of locations across the country. It's been a long weekend hotel located event in the past, and the last two were in Denver, 2021, 2023. At this time, no groups have offered to host future national events. I'm getting some. Frank needs to mute his phone or computer there. We're getting something in the background from you, Frank. Paul, you could mute yours too. Okay, we have a panel of three of us involved in the past O-scale conventions, and we'll start out with a series of questions and then open it up for feedback and additional questions. So I'll call on us individually, the three of us. So the first thing I had for a question, what two-rail O-scale events or gatherings have been successful during the past year? And Brad, do you want to start us out?
Well, first of all, I think, at least in my mind, the Denver meet was successful. The clinics were exceptional, layout tours were good. And I think those of us that showed up had a good time. Other people might look at success differently. I don't know how the vendors view it. Would have been nice if there would have been more people there, but for those of us that attended, we had a great time, so nobody was disappointed. The March meet so far is successful all the way around. We have plenty of people showing up. Our attendance this year was up 20%, so we're a little over 700 people this year. And for those that attended, we were quite busy throughout the entire event. Max attendance all time was between 1,000 and 1,200 in previous years. And some of us might remember the room being overcrowded. So we're doing well. The March meet will continue at least through 2025. We almost have an agreement for 2025. And hotel willing, we should be able to run it a few more years if the community continues to support us. As far as other meets are concerned, I think Indy is still viable. If we could ever find a location we can afford. I speak with Jim Cantor periodically on that, and we pass ideas back and forth. Right now, we're not able to do it, but it's still something we're trying to do. Beyond that, I don't know what the future of a national meet is going to be. It's going to depend on what the O-scale community wants. And how we determine that, I don't know. The last few years has been challenging with COVID. I'm not 100% convinced we can look at Denver and say, hey, nobody's interested anymore. However, the last two Denver meets, it's apparent that it's going to be very difficult to run another national because somehow you have to figure out how to cover your expenses. And if you don't, you end up in trouble really, really fast. So it's a big question mark in my mind.
All right, thanks. Dan, you want to give us some comments on the same question? What's been successful during the past year?
Well, I agree with Brad. I guess it depends on how you define successful. I thought Denver was a very successful show. Brad pointed out that the clinics were exceptional. The location was fantastic. If you're a rail fan, I mean, it had everything going for it. And to me, it was successful. Now, on the other side of the table, I think it was probably a disaster for the promoter. So you got to look at both sides. When we did the indie show, we had a good rapport with the hotel. My wife, Amy, worked in the hotel industry for over 10 years with Hilton, Westin, Embassy Suites, and so on. And you really need somebody in your corner to approach the hotels to get any kind of a deal, because you know the salespeople at the hotels are looking to sell at the highest price. And I've known a lot of promoters who Amy's helped out, looking at contracts and seeing where they can change things and reduce things and put some pressure on the hotel. With Indy, unfortunately, after this last show that we had 2 years ago, the new owners came in, they're going to remodel, and they want to recoup their costs. And the contract that we were presented was just too high. It was frankly too high. I'm not going to put a show on and lose money. Nobody does. Break even maybe, but not lose money. And I think that's one of the issues now with the hotel type of show and the 2-day type of show. Now we can talk about, do we need 2-day shows, or can we do it with 1-day regional shows? And I think that's maybe where we want to start looking. But believe me, when we decided to drop Indy, we had a lot of comments. You can do this, you can go to the fairgrounds, you can go here, you can go there. And when you look at alternatives, and then you start adding up the extra costs that those other venues put on you, whether it's parking or security, all the other things that get tacked on that we didn't have to worry about with the hotel, it becomes more expensive. So, yeah, I think I think going forward, a 2-day hotel show is going to be extremely difficult to put in a location that will bring you attendees. And that's one thing I think we want to look at. With the Indy list of attendees over the last 5 years that we had it, the normal trip was about 100 miles that people would come in. So you can't put a show like that in the middle of nowhere because nobody's going to show up. Conversely, in Denver, I'm not privy to their list, but I would suspect that that show again drew from the area. And I don't know how many people like us or Brad or you came in that long distance because of the expense. But to me, Denver was the great location. I mean, that show should have been a much better success than it was. And that begs the question, and I think this is something we're going to pursue in the magazine with probably an online survey, is if you don't go, we want to know why you don't go. There's a lot more people that don't go than do go. And we need to figure out why people don't want to go, why they, whether it's a family, whether it's money, whether it's travel, we got to figure those things out. And hopefully we can get some answers for you on that.
All right, thanks. After being involved with 2 Denver shows, financially it was not a success for us sponsors. But we just find that as Dan talked about, extremely difficult to deal with a hotel for a 1-time or 2-time event in a city, a different city every time, things like that. So, so that's been tough. So, tell us some more about the challenges of managing a hotel located event. I'm going to start with you on that one, Dan.
Oh, geez. You have to build a rapport with the salespeople because they're the people you're working with. The lady that was at the hotel in Indy, Amy and her got to become really good friends, and it was fairly easy for them to work together. And get things straightened out and get things in the contract that we could all agree with. But it's extremely difficult. Even the sales department has to answer to the owners. So they may come up with something that is agreeable to you and them, and then the higher ups at the hotel say, no, we're not going to do that. So that's always something you have to worry about. But you know, I don't want to liken it to a used car salesman, but that's pretty much what you're dealing with. These people are going to want to sell you everything. I remember the first indie show we had the buffet outside, and we had, you know, food and a bar, a pay bar, but we supplied all kind of food and stuff, and then we came to realize the next year, well, we didn't have to do that because, you know, we lost our rear end as far as the food goes. You know, the hotel makes money two ways. They make it in rooms, and they make it in food and beverage. That's where the money is made, especially at the hotel we were at, because remember, the Indy Hotel was an airport hotel. So we weren't fighting weddings or things like that. We were fighting corporate people, but most corporates don't go over the weekend. It's a Monday through Friday thing. So we kind of had we had a hole there with a excuse me, Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday show. We could get a decent rate. That dried up. But I don't want to speak for Brad, but I know in that hotel in Chicago, that ballroom could be broken up into at least 4 venues. And when my wife was in the hotel business, their average wedding was about $35,000. So if you can get those 4 in a ballroom that's sectioned off, that's a lot of money. And obviously the O-scale show is going to pay that kind of money. So, you know, if you're going to look at a hotel, it's got to be one that doesn't do conventions, or a lot of them that doesn't do any weddings, because that's just going to blow you right out of the water on the weekends. But it's difficult. And that's why I say I just don't see, especially on a one-shot deal for a 2-day hotel show. And then conversely, you know, we talked about other venues. Then you got the dealers. You know, the dealers don't want to be 5, 6, 7 miles away from the venue for their hotel. They'd like to be a lot closer, if not in the same location. And so that adds a bit of difficulty. And then again, you go to a 1-day show, you're going to lose a lot of dealers. And that's the biggest problem. You know, Bill Davis isn't going to drive down there with a van full of stuff for a 5-hour show. It's not worth it for him. But there's a lot of successful regional shows. Strasburg comes to mind immediately, where you have a base of O-scalers already there. And even though I think it's on 3 times a year, every time we've gone out there, we see different people and different things. So, you know, that may what we'll have to do to fill in. Because a 2-day hotel show is just too expensive, and you're at the mercy of the hotel because you have to guarantee room nights. And I don't know about you guys, and I'm as guilty, and I know Brad is. When we used to go to shows back in the day, sometimes we didn't stay at the hotel, because next to the $140 night hotel, there was a $80 a night hotel, and that's where people tended to go, and not realizing that it hurts the promoter. Because if we had, luckily at Indy, we filled room nights. In fact, we went over. But if we hadn't, and you wouldn't know that till the show's, you know, over, you could be in for hundreds, if not thousands of dollars that you'll have to give back to the hotel. So that's the biggest worry, is can you fill their requirements? And unfortunately, once that contract's signed, you can't do anything about it. You either fill the room nights or you pay up at the end, and that's very difficult.
Brad, do you have anything else to add from the Chicago point of view? Obviously, you've got a bigger show, bigger event.
Right. Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, I want to get back to Denver, and I want to profusely thank you guys again for putting that on. It was a lot of fun. And I think a big selling point we should use if we try to do something like that in the future is there's more to it than just the O scale meet. There's the trip to and from. And what we did with my party is we made it a rail fan trip along the Union Pacific. And Dan did the same thing with his wife, and even had a write up on that in the magazine about some of the stuff he saw. So if you include the rail fan trip along with the O scale meet, you have twice the fun for the same expense. Back to the subject matter, the biggest problem that we're having with the March Meet Committee is communication with these hotels. Not so much with the Westin Lombard, but with these other hotels that we've been in communication with to try to run the Indy Meet, etc. And when you approach these people, you can be very specific and say, hey, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to pay for it. This is our budget. Everything is yeah. And you think you have a meeting of the minds, and then the contract comes over and is completely obscene. And you get these people on the phone and they say, well, we looked at your website and this is what you can afford. And there was a hotel, I think, near the airport in Indianapolis. We would have had to charge people $200 a head to get in to cover our expenses. And when I explained that's not going to work, he tells me, well, that's the cost of doing business. It's like, well, we're not going to be able to draw that kind of money. And somebody sells something in the meet, we're not getting a cut. So these people just don't understand. They also like to play hardball, but yet we're not in a position to play hardball ourselves. And admittedly, I tried to do that with the Westin to try to arrange something that would allow us to make a little money. And it didn't work. In fact, we almost lost the ability to contract for 2025. So got to take a couple steps back and pretty much have to accept what they offer. But so far, the Westin likes us. By us, I mean the O scale community. So they're still favorable to our event. So we have to do things to keep them happy. A lot of people weren't so happy when we held it in April a couple of years ago, but that's one of the things we had to do. And now for 2025, we're going to have to offset the show date by 1 week, which shouldn't be too much of a problem. But what that does for us is it allows us to remain on favorable terms. And what these people do is they keep a lot of notes on our event. So when they have new people coming in, they look at the notes and they give me a call and they almost know me and know what's going on. So that helps significantly. If we weren't so nice to them and they didn't think so highly of us, I think it would be more of a problem when you have new people coming in. Because sometimes it isn't just the new person that takes charge, it's a new company managing the hotel. We're on the 3rd management company so far and the 4th representative since we started this at the Westin. And that's something we're not going to be able to avoid. I was hoping at one point we could gather a group of guys together and maybe purchase the Westin next time it's for sale. And I found out that it's actually the city of Lombard that owns the hotel and it's just different management companies. So we have to continue to keep these people happy. So that's the big challenge there. What the future holds, I don't know. I mean, we're still trying to do something with Indy, and it's just a matter of, these hotels becoming reasonable again. Instead of telling us what they think we can afford, they just don't understand what we're up to.
All right. Very good, thanks. And I just had a couple comments. I think when we look at what we're doing at these events, we want to maximize the amount of meeting room space for all of our sales activities. We want a number of rooms for clinic presentations and things like that. And yet we don't bring a whole lot of room nights. And our population is not big spenders when it comes to banquets and other things, spending food and beverage. And I learned the hard way that food and beverage that you purchase and charge to your room as part of your stay does not go towards that food and beverage guarantee that you're on the hook for from the hotel. So just a couple remarks there about that. My next thought was there are other model railroading, all scale train shows, NMRA organized events. How can O-Scale 2 Rail use these? And I'll go first on that. And I think there's a place for us O-Scalers to be in these events. And we're doing that kind of thing here in Indianapolis in November. And I think it's something we need to explore. It's extremely economical. 8-foot tables are $16 for a one-day show. Entrance fee at the door is $3. And sure, it's a one-day show. We also have a two-day show in August in a different county fairground. But I think these are worth attending, worth exploring. And if we can have a number of O-Scale people come to these, we can certainly position them to be together in the main room. And so I think that's something that's worth considering. Those are my comments. Brad, do you have some thoughts?
Short term, the O-Scale community as a whole is not too much open to that. Long term, we might have to go in that direction, or if nothing else, we use that as an opportunity to expose people to O-Scale 2 Rail, and maybe it'll snowball from there. And I think what that's going to require is us building a couple layouts. One layout isn't going to do it. I think what we need is a switching layout to show people, hey, you don't need a massive layout to enjoy the hobby, yet have something to consume in your time. And then, another layout, maybe, small house basement size, orbiting type of layout for those that just want to quote unquote run trains. So, I mean, I wish things were different, but I get a lot of feedback all the time, every time we talk about combining with an all-scale show. And a lot of people right now are not receptive to that, but I mean, that could change. Things are always changing. And so I think we still need to look in that direction.
All right. Dan?
Yeah. What Brad said, I agree with him. I think the Danville show was successful last year when they opened it up to O&S scale. I mean, we were kind of squirreled away in our own little area, but we had a lot of people walking through, and we also had some HO&N guys walking through just to see what the heck was going on down there. And so we're excited to support that show and go back. But as a whole, I think Brad's right. A lot of O-scalers, they look at a full scale show and they think, well, there's not going to be that much there. And, what dealers are going to be there that are really going to have anything? So I think if you're going to do that, you have to convince the dealers, the big dealers, to support that. The Caboose Stop Hobbies, the Ted Schnepps, those kind of guys. If people know that they're going to be there and supporting it, then you'll get the people in. But if you can't do that, it's going to be difficult because it's awfully slim pickings as to what you're going to be able to get there. Mm-hmm. And yes, you'll always learn from other scales, but it's just a mindset that all scale shows just are not for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's to a certain extent it's a chicken and the egg, which comes first, people showing up, or dealers being there, and which comes first. So we'll see what happens. Are online events such as this O-Scale Central Zoom or larger NMRA X viable alternatives to in-person? Brad, short comments?
No, I mean, you just can't substitute in-person interaction. I think it's nice as an addition, but not as a replacement.
Okay, Dan?
Well, it's not going to be a replacement, but I think this presentation here today proves that what you can do. You look at Sarah's presentation. That was a clinic in Denver, and it transfers really well to this type of thing. I love to do my tour, my 3D printing clinic on a Zoom like this, because it just lends itself so easy and can get information out there. So it has its place. It's never going to replace it. But for people that can't get to a convention, that still are, you know, want the clinic type thing, I think this is a great venue for it.
Take a look, if you would, at several comments that are being made on the chat room, and if you can, work those into your response. At some point, I got a couple of thoughts, but I don't want to step on the presentation.
All right, yeah, I think, I don't think there's any substitution for the personal contact, being able to actually look at the product right in front of you, put your hand on it, talk to the supplier and judge, are they really going to be able to make this? And things like that. But it is a good way to share a lot of additional information. I have one more, and it's kind of goes back in just short comments. We have the O-Scale T-Rail March meeting in Chicago and other local gatherings. Do we really need anything more? And how about some short answers, Dan?
It's a good question. There's a lot of regional, shows out there, and I think that would be I still think that's the way it's gonna go. I'm looking at the comments, and I do agree with the prototype modeler meets. If you're going to spread the word of O-Scale and P48 and show people just what we can do in this scale, that's the place you're going to get the converts from. I don't know of a lot of guys that come into the hobby and say, I'm going to go 2-rail. That's not their first pick. It's H or N. But then as they want more detail, as they get older, whatever the reasons, especially the detail part, they see the 2-rail is a viable option. But as far as shows, like I say, I mean, if you look at the magazine, our last issue of the magazine, there's probably 12 shows listed in there, all regional, all over the country. And that may just be the way to go.
All right. Brad, you got any short comments on that?
The feedback I get from the dealers is they feel we need 2 major shows a year, one in the spring, one in the fall. And that's why we continue to work on Indy, because you've got the mass there, you got the layout tours. It's familiar for a lot of people. As far as a national meet is concerned, personally, I need one. I like the traveling, the rail fending along the way. And for that reason, that's why, I need it. Is a lot of people know I travel with a couple of young guys, Adam Schaefer and Shaden Anthony, both young guys, excellent modelers. They're a heck of a lot of fun to rail fan with. And we need to do that for a few more years. But whether that works for other people or not, we don't know. So, but at least for right now, we need to work on at least 2 major meets. So I think we somehow need to resurrect Indy.
All right. Well, we got some comments on the chat. Let's see. Would it make sense to have a 2-rail conference in conjunction with a larger O-Scale convention? Well, I think we've looked at that. It hasn't come together yet. Here's a good point. Don't forget to overlap with railroad prototype modelers. Those meets have a lot of people that are looking at details and looking at relatively fine scale modeling, and that's right up O-Scale 2-rails and our features. Train Fest in Milwaukee didn't have a 2-rail scale layout for a long time. Hard to promote the scale without. It's not present. Well, we need to look in the mirror. Who's going to prepare a layout? Who's going to take it to the event? And who's going to show it? That requires individuals to take it on, such as what the Detroit Club has done. And we can go from there. And Also, the Oklahoma City Club has done a switching layout, so there's two layouts right there. What about being present at the three rail shows? I think that would be quite an interesting thing that would be worth exploring and trying. Here's something back. As a TCA member, I would have no issue with a two rail layout being there. So,
Eric,
yeah,
this is Jim Cantor. May I comment on that?
yeah, go ahead.
We will have our display at the Danville meet, displaying O scale, a small layout. The next item is on the TCA. They've had several regional and national meets at Indianapolis, and each time I have offered to take our O scale module railroad there. Okay, and each time I was turned away. And one of them was the organization called LOTS. I think it's Lionel Operator Train Society. And there was no way they were going to let a two rail layout in there. I did try, and I was, but they were pretty adamant about we do not want two rail there.
Well, I think there might be some good variations we can take advantage of on that, Jim.
And maybe that time, maybe that's changed, and they would be a lot more willing to work with us. I know on the local TCA, I'm working with them now, trying to bring back that monthly meet where we will have two railers and three railers combined.
Yeah, I think we've got some good friends I have now in the three rail market, and I think probing through TCA is probably worth it. Let me see what's going on here.
I just want to throw in my little bit too, since I kind of mentioned that I was a TCA member. Also, a lot of, especially for the Chicago March meet, I know there's a lot of three rail TCA members that are attending the March meet. A lot of them are going there to buy details to put onto their TCA modular layout or structures or other little details. So there's a lot of us three railers that are TCA members that have no quorums. It'll probably, a lot of it is the people that were running the events or the meets that were the issues in that, and it's just getting the correct contacts and the correct people to communicate with. Also, I was involved with Train Fest for a few years, actually on the side of the curtain of running the show. And one of the things I can say with the Wise Division board was there was plenty of three rail individuals on there. There was HL scale, N scale, so there was a broad interest of modelers, something you wouldn't think of a NMRA member being a three rail O-gauger. But again, working with the groups and maybe the events that occurred in your areas, the TCA guys were blindfolded in that, but the TCA has so many broad interests of collectors in that. There's the LGB or G scale crowd is really big and heavy in the TCA community, and I think it's just talking to the right individuals. I know the one Rocky Mountain Division TCA, they put on an all gauge show, and I'm pretty sure if you were to contact them, those that live in that area, and if you had a two rail modular layout, they would be more than happy to have the layout at their event and their show. So a lot of it's talking to the right individuals, or inviting them to a gathering of when you're working on the layout, or even if you have a round robin of two rails, inviting some of the people you wouldn't think would be interested. They may surprise you, and they may show up and participate, and invite you guys to bring your layouts to the events then.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. Yeah, that was kind of my experience. I had an open house here at my house a month or so ago, and probably 20% of the people that came were three rail friends and most three rail scale interest, but they're out there, they're interested, and they're certainly just like all of us, most in the hobby, most of us are reasonable to communicate with and talk with, so.
Yep.
All right, I
Man,
think that,
man,
let's see if we have any more, questions,
I,
and short
I
comments.
have a question or a suggestion. This is John Sethian. Look, there's this fundamental issue that 3-rail people don't want, is perceived to not want to be with 2-rail people. 2-rail people are perceived to not want to be with 3-rail people, and neither of them wants to be associated with the NMRA and back and forth. You know, it's kind of a microcosm of our country. However, why not consider a joint meet where what you're doing is you're sharing the hotel rooms, driving the costs down for that and making it palatable, but the actual shows are in separate venues in the same hotels. Many of these hotels have more than one ballroom, more than one space. So if you're really interested in just 2-rail and you want to keep it just that, you go to that room. And if you're really interested in 3-rail or the NMRA, you go in that room. You don't have to meet each other. But my guess is a lot of people will want to at least see what the other side is doing. But if you don't, you sell it as 2 separate entities so that you're not, one side isn't horning in on the other's action. I think that may be a whole lot more palatable, and you solve at least the immediate problem getting the cost down for the hotel.
John, I think that's an outstanding idea, and actually, to add a little bit more dimension to that is that there's some areas that are of common ground, like scenery and buildings and structures. So there's some middle ground with doing it that way, and I got a feeling that if we start communicating and grouping together to take on a hotel, the hotel is going to be a lot more receptive when they see the customer size increase.
Greg, I understand what you're saying. And as a matter of fact, I personally go to the York TCA meeting simply for scenery items, okay? But I would not sell it as that. Because once you do, one side, you know, this animosity, you don't want to feed this animosity. You don't want to feed a fear, you know, that the other side has taken over. That's why I'm making it 2 separate rooms in the same hotel. Let people go from one to the other on their own. But don't try to sell it as this, we're going to cooperate and all be together to begin with.
But there still needs to be like a high degree of coordination in dealing with the hotel.
Oh, yeah, of course. But I'm not going through that mechanics. But yes, of course there has to be. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to show the hotel it's beneficial to have us all there. It's trying for our particular, this community, I'm not going to say our community, this particular, it's making the hotel palatable financially, which otherwise couldn't do. Dealers may like it, I don't know. But I think there was a meet in St. Louis in which the O-Scale National was part of the NMRA meet. And that kind of got torpedoed by the pandemic. You guys can may remember better than I did. But I thought that was a great idea. And as a matter of fact, I was invited. What?
Well, here's the rub. I mean, the hotel is going to want to have somebody who's ultimately responsible for room nights and the food and beverage minimums. And somebody's got to sign the contract. So it's gotta make sense that way.
Yeah, but I don't think that's an insurmountable problem. You could have 2 people, one from each group, getting together and deciding one of them will sign the contract, one's the chairman, one's the vice president. That's a simple matter of mechanics. Once you get the agreement, that's what you want to do. Okay.
I got a couple of things I want to get on the table. Number one, everybody needs to understand that hotels and any other cost item on a convention from any institution, whether it's a church or a fire hall or whatever, it's a supply-demand situation. And right now, there is a tremendous pent-up demand following COVID, and the hotels are in the driver's seat. The airlines are in the driver's seat. The gas companies are in the driver's seat. And so there are market things going on that we do not have a lot of leverage on. And we have to understand that, which is one of the reasons why we're looking for alternative venues and alternative formats. Second, we have been trying to get outreach in the form of people covering shows, covering NMRA conventions, covering RPM meets actively. And although we are far from perfect, O-Scale Central has been a much more energetic organization than it was. It is still very difficult and very resource intensive to get people to sign on. We are continuing to look at this. We are continuing to try and find people to coordinate. But if you think about it, if you're going to go and represent the scale and you're going to take a modular layout with you, that means you're going to have 2 folks at least to deal with the layout and deal with manning the booth. And they're going to be there essentially tied up for a day plus the preparation time. It is a lot to ask of people. It's not to say that we are not willing to ask them, and it's not to say we have not been asking them. It is to say that it is really tough. And one of the reasons it's really tough, and one of the reasons that the discussion is a start, but by no means a finish, is there's no them out there. There's nobody, there's no hidden group that is going to put on a convention. There's no hidden group that's going to cover a train show. There's just us. And so if the scale decides that it's important enough, and if the individual members decide it's important enough, then we can get train show coverage, we can get layouts at Train Fest, we can do all of this, but there's no cavalry coming over the hill to save O-Scale. It's just going to be us. And apropos that, I chaired the 2018 Scale O National Convention in Rockville, which I think is regarded by most people as having been a very successful convention. And I was very involved with both Denver conventions, and before that, Jim Cantor and I worked on some of the Indianapolis conventions. A successful convention is a huge amount of work. And hats off on anybody going forward that seeks to reincarnate Indy. We will all certainly work to support that. But make no mistake, conventions do not just happen. And if you write me, go on our website, oscalecentral.com, and go to where it says president, and send me a message with your contact information. I would be delighted to follow up with you and include you in the efforts that we're going to be making. But there's no free lunch. It's hard work, and nobody else is going to do it for us. It's just us.
All right. All right. I think that pretty much wraps up the convention. There's a few discussions. There's a few additional chats you may want to touch base with there, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank
Back
you.
to you, Greg.
Thank you, Eric. We are running way long, and my mama told me that you don't want to test the patience of your audience. Dan Dowdy, whom I was going to ask for a short news you can use, had to leave, and so we will defer that to our next program. Greg, do you have some announcements? We do generally try and introduce people, have them introduce themselves, and we do generally have a good and welfare. But at almost 2 hours, I think we are probably toward the end of our patience for our audience. And anything else? What you got?
No, I think we had a great meeting here, and the fact that Sarah is still on from Austria, and Santiago is on from Colombia, is it, or South America?
That's Colombia. Yes, thank you.
Colombia, excellent.
I'm watching from the corner. Thank you.
I think this was a great meeting, and the fact that people stayed on the program for as long as they did just underlines the fact that this is valuable to our community. So let's end it here. We have the next one scheduled for
October 22nd.
22nd, and that will be hopefully with Pat Mitchell with a dead rail layout tour and more information about dead rail operations, some discussion perhaps on the annual meeting, and then maybe an interview with Alan from KD. But this has been a great fall kickoff, and looking forward to the rest of the program for the rest of the year.
The October 22nd meeting has the same meeting number and passcode. If you received an invitation to this meeting, you should receive a reminder. Greg reminds me that most of the world, not including people in my business, prefer a one-touch link to get into these meetings. I use the meeting ID and passcode, and Greg has said he will make it a priority to include a one-touch link in the next meetings. And our annual meeting for O-Scale Central will take place in conjunction with and in the same meeting as the program that we are talking about. And Greg and I have been talking. We want to, we understand how exciting it is for everybody to come and watch a couple of talking heads go through stuff. Greg is committed, and I'm committed to try and include layout tours, to try and include perhaps short clinics. We are looking for ideas. We're looking for program. And Greg is very enthusiastic and very resourceful, so we're counting on him. Finally, I mentioned that these are recorded and they are available on YouTube. I'm going to leave the meeting open because one of the chat room messages fairly early on had the YouTube address, so you can access prior meetings. We're going to try and make sure that this and other meetings are also edited and recorded and online. We're in a bit of a transition for that. We would love to have somebody who is good with video and might be our new editor to help us with that. Get back to Greg or get back to me through our website at president@oscalecentral.com.
David?
Sir.
Yeah, you asked if we had any announcements. Actually, I do.
Please.
Even though I don't have a camera. Mike Slater, he had some comments. He joins us with the March Meet Committee. He's going to be our treasurer. And the next meet will be March 14th to 17th next year. The website is www.marchmeet.net. We'd like as many people as possible to attend. And as usual, we start with Ted Schneff's operating session on Thursday. So those who haven't been to his house, make it a point to sign up. He's used to having new people operate, so experience is not necessary. And if Alan is still on board here, I'd like to thank him profusely for his product offering. I intend to place a large order relatively soon. It's going to get some projects off the shelf. And Sarah, your work is exceptional. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. We are adjourned.